There's someone in the back has been raising his hand for a while. White shirt.
Thank you. My name is Namoj. I have two questions. So the first part is when the Paris Agreement and also when they put down the guns, the clause was having immunity. So could you explain how that immunity being taken away? And was there any concern about the consequence of that? And secondly, the role of international, in this case China, the US, Vietnam, and the international player, has it been considered in this case?
Good questions. Okay. First of all, regarding the immunities, in international law, it's not recognized that you give immunities for crimes against humanity. The law says you can't forgive or amnesty or give immunity to someone in those circumstances. So they haven't been recognized in the court. Eng Sari in particular tried to challenge that he had an agreement when he surrendered not to be prosecuted. And actually, that was denied, although they still were considering it, and it would have been part of the judgment, but then he died before the end of the judgment. Now, as for the involvement of other countries, that certainly has come up in the trial. And the trial talks about, the judgment in case 2 talks about, first of all, the American bombing that occurred prior to 1975, 1970 to 73, and the many tons of bombs that were dropped on Cambodia. And there definitely was evidence in the case about China and how Cambodia, for example, was sending rice to China in returns for weapons when Cambodian people were starving. So all of that is evidence, but the jurisdiction of the court in the statute that was negotiated, and of course, like the jurisdiction of all international courts, that's a political act when the statutes are negotiated, it's limited to the senior leaders and those most responsible of the Khmer Rouge regime, and from 1975 to 79. It doesn't cover anything before 75 or after Vietnam came into Phnom Penh on 6th of January 79.
I want to know, are those who were victims stay in jail or did they stay in the abolition?
They're in the detention unit. Okay, there's 3 people now convicted. There's one, Doik, whose trial and appeal is over. So he's back, he's in a provincial prison. I forget where it is. And Q Sampan and Ren Chia are still in the detention unit, which is a little jail right at the court.
Thank you for your time. My question was, how was the sentence determined with regards to life in prison versus capital punishment or what have you? How was that sentence determined?
The statute does not have the death penalty, so the maximum sentence would be life in prison. And the judges just said the gravity of the crimes, given the gravity of the crimes, the role of the accused as senior leaders, that was a sentence that was justified.
Hello? Cool. Sorry, I just got back from the Philippines and I was doing a study human rights violations of the government of the Philippines. So it's important for me to ask, how much of the Cambodian public is aware of the process by which the court is actually going about dealing with these cases? And do you think many of them feel safe speaking out in terms of Khmer Rouge people still inside the country? Do they feel safe enough to step out into the main city and speak about these issues? Or do you feel like there's still a lot of fear for them to be witnesses?
Well, certainly in Phnom Penh, people feel safe to speak about the Khmer Rouge, and people regularly do. It's a country where there is a big difference between, like in many countries, the urban population and the very rural population. And studies have been done, and there still is a lack of knowledge about the court in many of the villages when you get away from the cities. And some people were not even aware of. Most people say they've heard of the court. The first trial of Deutsch was broadcast on TV, and a lot of people saw it every day. And I think that helped people understand it. But some were not. In recent studies that were done before the judge, were not aware about the Q Sampan Nunchia trial. On the other hand, the court, we do make efforts to do outreach and go and speak to people. DC CAM does a lot of outreach where they go and explain about the court. And as I mentioned, 150,000 people have been brought to watch the proceedings.
Sorry, I just also have one more question. Do you feel that the intense policy needed to prove these war criminals guilty is contributing to the overall feeling by the Cambodian people internationally and nationally that they're not getting justice for the crimes that these people have committed? Or do you think that is actually necessary for all this evidence and all the processes that really was it actually necessary for the process of the courts to take this long to finally see these cases after 30 years of not seeing it and completely leaving the Cambodian people silent?
Well, I mean, I definitely agree that you want to speed up justice, and I'm not saying it should have taken this long. It has, but effort should be made to speed it up, and we're continuing to try to think of ways to speed up the next trial. But in your question was about, what was I going to say? Whether people feel, could you repeat that?
I just said that, do you feel that the policy that's needed to prove
Oh, yes, thank you. Okay. Well, I think it is important to have very detailed evidence, and I think it's very useful when Nun Shia, for example, tries to give his speech, that we then can present the evidence to counter it, and hopefully ask him questions. Unfortunately, in the first trial, both Nun Shia and Q Sampan, they started to testify, and then in the end, they both said, oh, we're not going to answer any more questions. Nun Shia had answered some at the beginning of the trial. But they said, oh, the trial's not fair, so we're not going to answer any questions. So that's unfortunate. They got to make their speech, and we didn't get a chance to cross-examine them. I hope in the next trial we will.
I just had a quick question. I'm a criminal justice student, at Cal State Long Beach, and I just want to know, with the case 3 and 4, you still had 2 investigating judges. You mentioned Mark Harmon. Are you guys still gathering evidence for those 2 cases?
And the way the system works, Cambodia has a French system. The prosecutor suggests, makes an initial submission saying we think that these crimes happen and these people may be involved, and then the judges investigate. A lot more investigation has happened in the last year, 2 years, than happened in the previous 4 or 5 years. So just in the last year or 2, they've spoken to 300 different witnesses in case 4 and about 60 witnesses in case 3. And they've examined several thousand documents for relevance to those cases.
Thank you for coming here and explain about people in Long Beach. I work in court LA County for about 20 years, and this is my new experience with international law. And I feel a little bit light because I did not suffer from Peru. I came here in 1975 in January, so I came here early, so I did not suffer that. But that's not the point that I want to address today. And I heard from when the day that the verdict was declared, and the point, I think, it was made to teach the country not to repeat the killing. But the killing is not about their own people. It sounds like the particular ethnic in their country, like in Iraq, Saddam Hussein killed the people, but in another ethnic. That's why he got verdict guilty. And in this case, at the beginning of the presentation, I heard you mention that the Khmer rule killed some particular ethnic like Cham, Khmer Islam, Vietnamese ethnic, and that's the point that the case that the court look into. It doesn't sound like killing of particular regular people.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad you raised that question because I need to clarify if anyone had this misunderstanding. Most of this case is about the killing of ethnic Khmer people. The vast, vast majority of those killed were ethnically Khmer. Many other groups suffered. Chinese just suffered in probably higher proportions than most. The Khmer Krom definitely suffered, the Cham, the Vietnamese. What I was explaining is just these genocide charges, because of the definition of genocide, they just deal with these two ethnic groups, the religious group, the Khmer, the Cham, and the Vietnamese. It doesn't mean that these are more serious. It doesn't mean that these are more serious charges than the killing of 1.7 million ethnically Khmer. So what I was trying to explain is a lot of people have this idea that genocide is higher than the other crimes. It's not necessarily true. Legally, it's not necessarily true. Many people, I don't have a problem with historians or other non-lawyers talking about the genocide of the new people or the Khmer people. You know, it's not legally technically correct, but undoubtedly what happened in Cambodia with the killing of 1.72 million people was, you know, one of the worst crimes, 25% of the population that ever occurred.
But when we ask you directly, it's a point to have the verdict, and then to get, like, I would say the hard evidence is the ethic. And that's what the court looking for, perhaps to make that person guilty.
Whether they had an
ethnic
bias, I mean, whether they were targeting for ethnic reasons?
Yes.
You know,
they were targeting, it's not limited to ethnic. What the evidence shows, in my view, is that the regime was trying to perpetuate itself, maintain themselves in power, and have this ideology that they had developed, this rapid revolution occur. The more people they killed, the more paranoid they became, and the more people then they killed even more and more. But most of those who were killed were Cambodian kids, Cambodian women, Cambodian men, ethnically Khmer. They targeted the Vietnamese because they were paranoid about Vietnam. They even, you know, invaded Vietnam and killed in villages. They killed Cambodians in Vietnam because they thought they were not trustworthy.
But from the bottom of my heart, I tell you frankly, the way I listen today, it seemed like 1.7 million killed get attention, get the world attention. But when the court start and the target is the ethnic, and then when you get grab that, and then you say, okay, we got it. But it does not satisfy we as Cambodians, but it sounds like satisfy some particular ethnic. That's what my concept. Yeah, nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me just ask you to try to explain a little more, because I really don't.
Okay.
What would satisfy you? Explain what would satisfy you.
I like to hear. It's not just particular ethnic. It's for everybody. Yeah, because it sound like the evidence that the court pick is on particular, and I see some witness understand, but that witness testify of the killing, but it sound like killing of some particular ethnic. It's not killing regular people, Cambodian, and in my mind, the whole thing when you trigger the ethnic, I remember when the London government, we talk about government top level, killing the Vietnamese and then let the body float into Vietnam, and then everybody jail the whole country. Oh, they doing the wrong thing. And that really clicked in me because I involved. And that could bring the London government, whoever involved in that massacre, then they could be in trial too. Thank you.
ហាងលក់ដំណាំមីមូសា Nursery នៅ East LA មីមូសា Nursery យើងខ្ញុំមានលក់ដំណាំហូបផ្លែស្រុកយើងគ្រប់ប្រភេទដូចជាដើមទៀបខ្នោទម្លាប់ស្រកានាគល្មុតមង្ឃុតព្រមទាំងដើមក្រូចគ្រប់មុខយើងក៏មានដើមមៀននិងដើមគូលែនសាច់ច្រើនផ្អែមឆ្ងាញ់ពិសាមិនតែប៉ុណ្ណោះយើងមានដើមល្ហុងដើមកន្ទឹមដើមស្វាយដើមត្របែកដើមក្រូចសើចលាក់និងលាក់មីមូសាក៏មានដើមផ្កាចម្ប៉ាណាគ្រីនិងចំបៃក្លិនក្រអូបឈ្ងុយឈ្ងប់រាល់ពេលរាត្រីហើយមានដើមផ្សេងទៀតជាច្រើនរាប់មិនអស់មីមូសា Nursery មានទីតាំង2កន្លែងមួយនៅ Santa Ana ហើយមួយទៀតនៅ East LA តម្លៃថោកសមរម្យព័ត៌មានបន្ថែមសូមអញ្ជើញតាក់ទងទូរស័ព្ទលេខ323 722 4543
Yes. Thank you, sir, for being here tonight. First of all, it must be hard to be in your position because everybody here is personally involved with the trial. And everybody looked to be justified depending on the experience and the trauma that they went through. So for you being here and explain, we appreciate. The question is, how does the Cambodian people respond to you personally being there? And second is, what are some of the positive impact from the trial? Long-term and short-term.
I have gone out and done outreach, and the Cambodian people treat me fantastic. Often I'm meeting with particular civil party groups. Of course, those are particularly interested in the case, the self-selected group. But even when I go and meet school teachers and others, they're very interested in the court, and they want the court to finish. They complain for good reason that it's too slow, too expensive. But they also say they want to see the cases finished, and they want to know more about it. So there is interest, and other studies, academic studies that have taken place, all show this, that people want to know more about the court, and they do want to see the cases finished and see results. I think the long-term impacts are what I said, and this is the most important, critical moment in Cambodian history that people have talked about for hundreds of years. It's important, I think, and going back to the other question, that we really have evidence that explains convincingly to everyone what really occurred and who was responsible and how this happened. And I believe that it contributes to the rule of law, as I explained earlier, both the development of the professionals, but even more important, the people in the society believing that there is possibility for justice in society.
Maybe one more question. One more question.
So the concept of justice being put out there by the court and the international community gives the impression as if this is the magic bullet or magic pill that the Cambodian people should be celebrating the verdict. So I'm just curious how, well, I guess you as a representative of the court define justice, because for the average Cambodians, their conception of justice is very different from the court, and I think this is something that we're seeing a disconnect between what the Cambodian people want and what the court defines justice and how they measure it. And so this continues to be a problem, whether it's case 2, phase 2, cases 3 and 4. It's not going to bring the kind of closure that the Cambodian people want. And quite honestly, everyone in this room, the Cambodians, particularly the elderly survivors who lived through it, feel that it's not comprehensive justice, it's not complete justice.
Maybe what do you feel would be what they want? What's the justice that they want to see?
Well, based on my interaction with the survivors that filed, some of them want to hear these convicted killers apologize, and that's not going to happen, and they've never apologized. One, as simple as that, it didn't need $200 million to go through to bring some type of closure for them. And in terms of reparations, I'm sure the majority of the survivors in here didn't know that it mainly benefits civil parties. Yes, symbolically, ideally, it's supposed to benefit the Cambodian people in society, but they're not legally recognized by this court as having suffered the Cambodian genocide. So the complications of this court, I think, has not been fully discussed or even educated. I mean, the court hasn't fully reached out to survivors overseas. When they talk about survivors, they tend to focus on in-country survivors. And this is the challenge that ASTRC has gone through to engage them in the court proceedings, whether it's case 2 or 3 and 4. And, you know, if survivors wanted to participate in cases 3 and 4, it's not as easy for them to just go on the website, download the victim information form, fill it out. It's quite complicated, and it takes technical expertise and for them to relive their memories and put on a piece of paper what happened between, you know, the dates that's mandated by the court or looked at by the court. So I'm just curious, because this is a void that the Cambodians continue to feel and experience.
What you're saying is I think, very typical of other tribunals also. Justice is not a magic pill. You're not going to solve the problems. You certainly don't regrow hands that were cut off, and you don't resurrect the dead. The 1.7 million that died. Those who suffered in this room, and nothing we could do in the court would make what happened not happen. The Nuremberg trials, as important as they were, they didn't bring back to life any of the 6 million people that the Nazis killed in concentration camps and the 10 million others they killed in that conflict. So, we have to have a realistic view about what justice is. But, from what I've seen in academic surveys where the groups have gone out, Human Rights Watch and Open Society Justice Initiative, and talked to victims, they still want to see a verdict. They want to see these people held responsible. Yes, absolutely. And the point you make is true. Many of them say they want to hear these leaders say they're sorry. They're not going to. But if they're not going to say they're sorry, we're going to make it clear, I hope, in the evidence that they're lying, that they are responsible. And I think in my understanding of human psychology, most victims want to see that. They want to see that everyone understand these persons are responsible, and people around the world to understand what they went through. In my generation, people probably heard about Cambodia, but those who are younger here, I'm sure their classmates don't even know about the Khmer Rouge. Those of you young people who are here, they don't know what your country went through. So I think it's very important that you have one of the few international courts around the world. There are many other countries that really want to have an international court, and they don't have it. Places like Syria now, and many other countries. Where the people, I think, want to see that kind of recognition. At least this court, I hope, will bring some recognition of the suffering that Cambodia went through.
Thank you. I've been reminded that we draw to a conclusion. Drawing to conclusion, there's some critical question. Let me ask.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who attended. I really appreciate you coming and having the opportunity to speak to you. Thank you so much.
I'd like to, because I've been holding this microphone, so let me ask two academic questions. One in terms of genocide, because early in the Khmer Rouge regime, when we returned back home, when we was evacuated out of the cities, now been out of the cities, we had the tendency to go back to our native village. And that's when we began to be mistreated as new people versus old people. New people versus base people. 17 April, base people. So the first wave of genocide or killing was against the new people. We target the new people. Because of that kind of targeting of the new people, would that fall into classification of genocide? Two questions. The second question, what the estimation, the legacy of the ECCC?
Okay, thank you. On that question, many people have discussed that, but the jurisprudence of international law, it can't be just a group that someone invents, the Khmer Rouge invented. They invented this distinction, new people, old people, base people. But that's not a national, religious, ethnic, or racial group. So under the international jurisprudence, the law, the cases that have come place, that have been written, it's clear that that would not be a national, ethnic, religious, or racial group. And as for the legacy of the court, what I hope it brings is documenting what happened in Cambodia, documenting that the world cared enough to have a court come and try to bring justice, give the victims an opportunity to speak and be heard, and have the crimes recognized, and contribute to the development of Cambodia's legal system and the culture and the society that there is some hope for justice.
30 or 40 years ago, when I myself began to work with the Jewish leadership here, we started saying that we should not let this happen again. The Holocaust, mass killing, and we was hopeful that by making the world aware of this mass killing, it would not happen again. But it happened again in Cambodia, from anywhere from Armenia to Cambodia, and now to the Middle East, it keeps happening. So I think perhaps the first thing to do would be to invite the Cambodians to participate in the efforts of documentation, of bringing a complaint to the ECCC as much as possible. What would you add to that?
I agree. I mean, just your coming here and showing interest helps the court, and talking to your friends about it. And of course, any of those who want more information or believe that they would like to participate in proceedings as a civil party, again, the website is eccc.gov.kh. eccc.gov.kh.
Can I have one last question? Sorry, I know I'm dragging this on, but I'm wondering in terms of the future cases that we're talking about, will the court be considering other redress that might not only impact the Cambodian population of Cambodia, but also the diaspora, the Cambodian diaspora?
I was going to say, if people wanted to file cases 3 and 4, they can contact us.
Yeah, please. Why don't you stand up and say that to the director?
If anybody wants to submit your testimony for cases 3 and 4, contact me and my organization will help you submit your testimony to the court. Because we have our international lawyer and our group of survivors that filed for case 002 and a couple of civil parties here in case 3 and 4. Amran and other survivors is here. They're here as well. Thank you.
You should know that anyone who applies will get a lawyer. You use the lawyers of ASRIC, or the court will find you another lawyer if you're a civil party that's applying.